Today I'm analyzing every single memory card that the Sony A7S III accepts and breaking down which card speed is necessary for which video modes. Hello everyone and welcome back. I've seen a lot of confusion about memory card choice for the Sony A7S III, so I thought I would buy each one that the camera accepts, test every single video mode including S&Q, and make a short video about it. This camera accepts V30, 60, 90, and CF Express Type A cards. The V30 cards are extremely cheap, only $35 US, and work for a surprisingly large selection of video modes, while the CF Express Type A cards are $400, are one of the most expensive memory cards I've seen, and unlocks a very small portion of what this camera offers. And honestly, it may not be necessary depending on your needs. Here is a table for the regular movie modes of all the codecs, bit rates, frame rates, and memory card combinations that are possible on the Sony A7S III. These are the 5 codecs that you can choose, along with the bit depth and chroma subsampling options within each codec. Then here are the available frame rates and the corresponding bit rates for each frame rate and bit depth combination. Also for reference, at the bottom I've listed what the max write speed bitrate each memory card should be capable of sustaining. In each section I list which memory card successfully recorded in that specific mode that I marked as green, while red obviously means it would not record. As you can see, the V30 cards work for about 80% of regular movie combinations, and probably should work for a few more, but don't for some reason. This is the case for XAVC HS and S4K. The V30 card will work for 60 FPS at the highest bitrate of 200 megabits per second, but will not record in 120 FPS at the exact same posted bitrate for both HS and S. I recorded short 11-second videos for these 4 modes and found that the file sizes were the exact same, with the exception of XAVC S120. I calculated the bitrate by taking the file size of 302.1 megabytes, divided by 11 to get 27.5, then times that by 8 to get 220 megabits per second. XAVC 120 was slightly lower at 195 megabits per second, which I believe is because it's the only one that is 8-bit while the others are 10-bit. And this is all the more reason as to why a V30 card should work in that setting. A similar thing happened with the Alli codec for 4K and 1080 with the V30 and V60 cards. Both cards should be able to work for Alli HD, and the V60 card should be able to handle 24 and 30p for Alli 4K. For regular movie modes, the V90 card is by far the best bang for your buck. It works for all the combinations and costs 4 times less than the CF Express Type A card at $110 for the Sony Tough cards, or $84 for the Pro grade cards. I personally have the Sony Tough card, which I don't love. It's definitely a solid card, but given its thickness and its tough rating, it has a difficult time moving in and out of my A7S III. This is actually a replacement card that Sony sent me that seems to be even worse than the first. It gets stuck inside the card slot, and the only way to remove it is with pliers. After some discussion on Sony forums, it seemed that about half the people had this problem. My first copy eventually did loosen up enough to no longer use pliers, but I was hoping to get lucky with the second copy. I'm not sure if this issue is unique to the A7S III or it affects other cameras due to the card's thickness. Moving on to S&Q mode, this is by far the most backwards mode as far as what memory cards will work with which setting. When you're in time-lapse mode, the bit rates are insanely low, like single-digit low, and they still won't work with the cards that are supposedly hundreds of times faster than the required bitrate. And it's worth noting that the Sony A7S III doesn't actually list the true bitrate for each mode in S&Q. You have to either divide or multiply the listed bitrate by how much the footage is being sped up or slowed down. For instance, the listed bitrate for XAVC HS 4K is the same as the regular movie mode, 100 megabits per second. But when you're taking 1 frame per second on a 24 FPS timeline, the footage is sped up 24 times, so you have to divide 100 by 24 to give you the bitrate of 4 megabits per second. Conversely, for slow motion shot at 120 frames per second, slow down to 24 FPS, you'd multiply 100 by 5 to get you the true bitrate of 500 megabits per second. This table is similar to the first one, but it has a few more frame rate options. This is specific to a 24 FPS output, and I've listed all the possible recording frame rate options from 1 to 240 frames per second. These frame rates equate to the footage being sped up by 24 times or slowed down by 10 times, which I listed below each frame rate. As a note, I didn't include a column for CF Express cards in this table because it's already too wide, and given its max sustainable bitrate of 3200 megabits per second, it very easily handles all the modes this camera has. Looking at the results, it is once again very strange that a V30 card will not work for any S&Q mode besides for XAVC HD, even though lots of them only record single or double-digit bit rates, and a V30 card should be able to record anything below 240 megabits per second. The V60 cards work for most of the HS and S video modes, but not for any of the Alli codecs, even though once again it should for all the time-lapse modes, as well as a couple of the slow motion ones as well. This card is probably the one I would recommend the least, because there's just a good chunk of modes that it won't work with, and for not too much more you can buy a V90 card, which once again is the best bang for your buck. The V90 works for almost every single mode except for two, which is the Alli 4K 120 FPS combination, as well as the Alli 1080 240 FPS combination with bit rates of 1200 and 890 megabits per second. So now you know which memory cards are required for which video mode, and now all you have to do is decide on which video mode you need. I made a separate video linked here and down below of what the differences are between each of the codecs and why you might want to choose one over the other. I've also included links down below in the description to where you can buy these cards. Full disclosure, these are affiliated, so if you purchase them, I will receive a small commission at no additional cost to you, and it really does help me out. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. It truly means a lot to me. I hope I was able to finally clear up what memory cards are needed for what video modes on the Sony A7S III. If you found any value out of this video, I would really appreciate you hitting that like button and leaving a comment below. Let me know how you feel about the ridiculous price of the CF Express Type A card, or which memory cards you plan to buy now that you know what you know. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.